I'll start with me. I'm Kenna Matthews. I'm the Community Services Manager here at the City of Orem. Stephen, do you want to go next?
Yep, Stephen Downs, Deputy City Manager with Orem City.
Margaret?
Margaret Black, and I'm the representative from District 1, which is Canyon View, Orchard, and Cascade.
Okay, we'll let our officers introduce themselves as part of their presentation. Jeff?
Jeff Lamson, Orem City Council.
David?
This is Dave Moulton. I'm the representative from Heatherridge.
Okay, thank you. Murray?
I'm Murray Lowe from Sunset Heights.
Karen?
Karen Canlis from Orem. So it's been a long day. From Aspen and Timpview neighborhoods.
And Reed? You're on silent, Reed.
I kept hitting the wrong microphone. I'm Lee Farnsworth from Sherman Park and Orem North.
All right, thank you, Reed. And Jamie?
I'm Jamie Davidson. I'm the City Manager with the City of Orem.
All right, well, thank you for joining us. So like I said, Angela and Summer aren't going to be able to be with us tonight, and so hopefully Mark will join us here soon. So we'll just start with the approval of our minutes from last meeting. I sent those out. Was there any questions or concerns with those? All right, can I entertain a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Thanks, Margaret. A second?
I'll second. This is Dave.
Thanks, Dave. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. All right. Okay, well, we're going to turn the time over to Irv Hell and Dan Blanchard from the Department of Corrections. They're going to be talking about some housing that they are going to be putting in our community. So turn the time, Irv, if you want to introduce yourself and then introduce Dan, and turn the time over to you for the presentation.
Sure. I'm Irv Hale. I'm the Regional Administrator for Adult Probation and Parole in Region 4. I basically cover the area that Orem entails. It's from the point of the mountain to pretty much Wayne County. We have 8 counties in Region 4 for Adult Probation and Parole. Our headquarters are here in Provo. I'm an Orem resident, lifelong Orem guy. I raised my family here in Orem and love our community. I'll turn it over to Dan. The only problem with Dan was he went to Mountain View, so we'll forgive him with that. But go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, it's still in Orem, right? Dan Blanchard, I'm the Division Director for Adult Probation and Parole. And we do have, like Irv mentioned, he's over the Region 4 area. We have 5 regions across the state. We do operate 5 other community correctional facilities between Salt Lake and Weber counties. And so this is a new change coming this direction. But like Irv, I was, born in Provo, but I was raised in Orem. I went to Mountain View, and I live in Provo currently, but Orem's still home for me. It's where I do all my shopping and movies and things like that, just because that's what's closer to me. So, but I can give a little bit of background if that helps, just on kind of why did we end up here to where we're at with this location selected in Orem, and then I think Irv can maybe talk a little bit more about maybe kind of more some of the specifics and what we kind of see happening day to day within the facility. So, as I mentioned, we have 5 other community correctional centers. 4 of them are in Salt Lake County, and 1 of them is in Weber County. And the 4 that are in Salt Lake are all pretty much on the west side of Salt Lake. We've participated in some of the community council meetings out there. When I worked in Salt Lake for some time, I used to go to some meetings in Glendale. And we know that the residents and the community council members always felt a bit like they had a disproportionate amount of our correctional facilities in their neighborhood. We heard that, we understood that. Well, over a number of years, they continued talking with their elected representatives up at the state legislature. And in 2019, a bill was passed that set kind of a set of formula for if funding was appropriated, here's a formula for how future community correctional centers, how they would be maybe located or placed. It set some population caps and percentages, and also said that as facilities come available, they should be based on this formula. We should look at county populations, or in some rural areas, maybe look at county zones where multiple counties are connected together. So that set a foundation. They also then appropriated some money. The initial legislation might have been 2018. It might have been the year before. In 2019, there was an appropriation to locate what would be the next community correctional facility for AT&T. And looking at the population, looking at the growth rate, the Utah County area was determined to be the next place where one would be needed. No surprise, just it's a great place that it has been growing fast, and we have people that are on supervision that have needs for this type of support. And backing up a little bit, so having two counties where all of our facilities are located around the state, that means if somebody needed the services that a halfway house or a community correctional facility provided, but they lived in southern Utah, they would be sent maybe to Ogden or to Salt Lake as they were maybe releasing from prison to be able to receive the services and treatment and just get the transitional support coming to the community. So those areas have felt that. I think that was part of their constituent concerns, that is part of what led to, we need to have some facilities located in other areas of the state. And we want the same thing. We want, as residents from Utah County are released, and we'd like to say crime doesn't occur anywhere, but as it does, as we have Utah County individuals committed and they're in the state prison, as they're coming out, we would like them to be closer to their family support, maybe closer to the previous employment they had, closer to family, closer to the area where they live. That's going to be more supportive for them long term. So that's part of kind of where we got to. In 2019, we began looking at multiple sites in Utah County, and we tried to look at an area between, maybe it was Pleasant Grove to Springville. Irv, I'm trying to think kind of initially where our focus was. And as we went through with the state managers to find property through the whole selection process, we ended up with the building that we're at off 800 North, the former BSA building. And we made a very diligent effort, to look for places that were commercial or industrial, would not impact residences, were close to a transportation or a bus line, and be in areas where other services were available. So that brought us to, I think last year around this time, we were working on the purchase agreement. And once the land and the building was purchased, initially we leased back the building to BSA for a few months. And now we're going through some of the construction and design process with a team. I'll let Irv now talk a little bit about what that looks like, maybe even the size, kind of what we're looking at in, the capacity for the building, which has changed over time. We've actually reduced the size a little bit as we went through the funding process.
Thanks, Dan. So yeah, like you mentioned, I just ran some numbers this morning, just so you know. Currently in Region 4, this is, like they say, the 8 counties. Obviously, the biggest county is Utah County, but we currently in Region 4 are supervising about 2,450 offenders, somewhere around there, 2,500. About 436 of those live in Orem, it looks like. So, like Dan mentioned, we I think we're in a need for this facility. We've been talking about this really since I started in this business 30 years ago. They've had a discussion about a center being in Utah County, and so I think it's a facility that will be a valuable facility. Obviously, nobody says raise their hand and say, hey, put it in our city, whatever, necessarily, but it needs to go somewhere. And so this site was chosen, and I think for all the things that Dan talked about, closeness to services, an opportunity we have to have those folks in our community. They're already here, quite frankly, and are already on parole. Being able to receive these services will be a benefit to them and a benefit to the community in many ways. So this facility initially was designed to be a 96-bed male parole facility. We've adjusted that downward now to where it's 82 beds, male facility. Like Dan had mentioned as well, it'll be a parole offenders will be the ones that will be in this facility. So just kind of so you know the difference between probation and parole, I find it sometimes helpful to explain to people. Probation is when someone is placed on with the judge basically places them on probation, gives them usually some jail time and orders conditions of their probation. That's the vast majority of people that we supervise are on probation. The judge supervises their probation, obviously with our assistance, but he's the one that has the ultimate jurisdiction. And then parole is those that are sent to prison by the court, and the jurisdiction then goes from the judge to the Board of Pardons and Parole, 5-member board that has jurisdiction over when they are released from prison, and as they are released, the conditions of their release and what they need to do on their parole. So it's in our region, it seems to be about, 85% to 15%, maybe 90-10, more probation than parole. So obviously the parole are the offenders that are coming out of prison as they are released back into the community. At this facility, it is not a secure facility as far as it's not under continual lockdown. It's not like a jail or a prison. The offenders there will be able to come and go. They'll be able to go to work in the community. They'll be able to try and find housing if they don't already have it set up. If they're there, we'll be offering programming in the facility. Substance abuse programming. We'll be offering transitional services, work, hopefully services. We'll be working with a lot of different other state agencies as well for those services. And there'll be, again, some programs and counseling offered in the center as well. And so that's just a little bit about the facility. They're in the process, like Dan mentioned, of designing it. The whole facility will be gutted and redesigned and brought to code and different things. So I'm trying to think what else I can share with you about it before we open it up to you for questions. What did I miss, Dan?
Maybe early, and I know you weren't going over the questions yet, but maybe talk through what typically you see as the concerns of a community that's getting one of these, and then maybe what reality bears out.
Sure.
Hey, excuse me, guys. Kenna, can you let me in? This is Jana.
You're in. You're in, Jana.
I am in?
You're in. Can you hear everybody?
Okay. Yeah, I can. It still says asking to join. Okay, I'll just be quiet now.
All right. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so good question, Stephen. So obviously some of the concerns are because it's not a secure facility, these offenders are able to go and come and go, that occasionally we get people that walk away from the facility, and like any neighborhood that has, convicted felons in the neighborhood, they are concerned about those walkaways, and we are as well. We have accountability calls at the center. The center will have full-time correctional officers. We'll have at any given time, during the daytime, we'll have obviously more, probably around 7 or 8 full-time officers there, certified officers. And even in 24 hours a day at night, we'll probably end up with like 3 or 4 or 5 there at night. So 24 hours a day, there'll be accountability for those coming and going. Those at work, we call and check on them. We check on them throughout the day. If individuals do walk away, we obviously notify the Board of Pardons that they've walked away, and that we obtain a warrant at that point. So that's one of the concerns. I think people, obviously, anytime there's a parolee, you see it on the news, right? I mean, people make mistakes and have challenges, but that center will be with 82 folks being there, which quite frankly will probably not be at 82 hardly at all. It'll probably fluctuate between about 70 and 80 in that range generally. But I think nationally, the statistics bear out that crime does not have this drastic increase around these facilities when they're built. The evidence suggests that actually it stays about the same. It doesn't get any worse. Or the people aren't going to necessarily commit crimes in the neighborhood. Now, I have walked and discussed with every business owner in that area, especially right directly to the south and west of where we are. I know there's some new construction there. Eric Budge and his folks, I went to high school with Eric. We really want to be good neighbors. Our goal is to be out in front of any issues. So I have been and talked to all of those folks that are there in that neighborhood, given them my card, discussed concerns that they may have. I've also, had an opportunity to ask them if they have any questions, concerns, that they reach out to us. We're probably about a year out before we're in. They're looking at January 1st of 2022 is the goal. Pretty ambitious goal. We'll see. Hopefully that'll be, with construction nowadays, you don't know. But so anyway, we really want to be good neighbors and responsive to people and their concerns and what's going on. But I tried to assuage those concerns as I've chatted with the business owners around there, that we will have obviously cameras. Security is a big deal for us. Generally speaking, again, the statistics and trends nationally at these centers doesn't cause a big increase of crime, particularly right around the center. That's not generally the case. So that hopefully that answers some of your questions, Stephen.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Mm-hmm. What else, Dan?
I think that in the past we had some questions. I think that some data was looked at with some of our facilities in Salt Lake, and they tried to overlay it with some of the crime data. I would have to go back and see if I could find the actual, the report or the summary. In the immediate vicinity, there may have actually been some reduction, because we do have officers that are coming in and out of the facility. They're often dressed usually like Irv and I are. The total number, I was looking that up, Irv, while you were chatting too, is 23 correctional officers. Well, actually, let me just add up the certified staff count. Is about 32, maybe 34 or so certified staff, plus 3 therapists and some caseworkers, a facility maintenance staff member, about 42 staff total. And most likely they would be people that live within the Utah County area. There are, so it's good. We would be adding some 42 positions. These would be brand new positions, we're not shifting positions from other places. It might be people that work in some other areas, but 42 total new positions that are based out of the facility.
Could I ask a question?
A question.
Absolutely.
Since I missed the beginning of this because of the computer, where is this facility? Sorry, so sorry.
We bought the old Boy Scout building off 800 North, just on the west side.
Oh, yeah, I
of the
know
freeway.
exactly where that is. That's right down from me. That's why I was wondering exactly where is this. Okie dokie. So Kenna, I could be let in on my computer. Can you do that while I'm on my phone, or do I need to hang up?
I'm not, excuse me, I'm not seeing you. It's not asking to let you in, so I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay, well then never mind. I'll just shut this stupid thing off and I'll stay on my phone.
Okay.
Let's go for the gold.
I wonder if you have the wrong link, because when I came in, I don't think I was asked for permission, was I? I just thought I just went right in.
Sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. I don't know. It's weird. So.
Reed, when you got a key to the city last year, that allowed you to read the meeting.
Well, I tell you what, our laptop needs to visit the garbage can, and we need to go to Best Buy. That's my problem.
So,
So what's the
Murray had a question, and then Murray has a question, then Margaret.
I have two questions. I've worked with criminal recidivism and done some work in Chicago with an African American group that did a lot of this work. One of the questions I have is, would the residents who are there on drug charges, if they're there either on probation or will there be drug testing for those residents who have a history of drug type criminal charges?
Good question. Yes, there'll be drug testing going on. There will be, because we have certified staff there, obviously we are going to do everything in our power to keep drugs and those things out of the program. We have searches that go on. Again, there's accountability calls during the day, and we try and track our folks to see what they're doing, where they're working, what they're doing to find work, what they're doing with programming. And we will be offering a good percentage of those beds will be in a drug treatment program as they transition from the prison back into the community. Like I say, they're already our neighbors, right? I mean, they're already our folks that are in the community and in Orem and in Utah County. This is going to give them an opportunity as they transition back out of prison into the community, hopefully to find work, to get, the treatment taken care of, aspects of things and the conditions of their parole met through working and other things. So our goal is really public safety, right, through these offenders' success. That's the goal. I think the best public safety, we would all agree, is if everybody became a law-abiding, tax-paying, contributing member of society. And that's our goal. We're not naive enough, though, to realize that some people don't make mistakes. Some people are going to commit crimes. Some people are going to recidivate and end up back in prison. And we know that as well. And so, we go in with our eyes wide open, but we want to give these folks an opportunity to be successful and every opportunity to return to our community and become contributing members of society. So that's the ultimate goal, right?
Absolutely, and a follow-up to that would be, if there was a resident of Orem who had a concern about someone who was living in the facility and maybe missed the parole hearing or was worried about safety or had some type of a concern, how would they voice that concern, and what would happen to that concern? If they're concerned about security or something because of someone who's in that residence.
There's a few options. I mean, currently, right now, the state of Utah has called what's VINE. It's the Victim Information Network. Whereas if they've been a victim of a crime of an individual, they can sign up on VINE and be notified when that individual is released from custody, and they will be notified through that system. So that's probably the best way to track it, Dan. And there's other ways, that you could reach out to us in the center as we open it up. And if there's other concerns, if they're not specifically necessarily a victim of someone there, but they just are concerned about things. Obviously, there's some issue with releasing things, but we're also very aware that some people are victims and have unique concerns that we want to be aware of. And a lot of times the Board of Pardons will put as a condition of individuals' parole that they're not to have contact with any individuals in their victims or other people in the community. So that could be a condition that is ordered by the board as well that we would enforce. Other options, of course, on anyone on parole for us is occasionally folks are ordered electronic monitoring, which includes GPS nowadays, right? We can track where they are through GPS. And we'll be using those services as well. And then as well as, like you say, testing for drug use or other violations, just to again, have that accountability piece as well as the opportunity for them to be successful. So.
Thank you.
So I have a question. Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, as I was thinking about that Boy Scout facility, I thought what a great choice that is. Easy freeway access. It's less than a mile from the hospital. Highway patrol's a block away. Non-residential, all those businesses in the area. And then it occurred to me, all those businesses in the area, when you talked to them, did you ask them about the possibility of them providing employment for some of these people, because, boy, if they could just walk over to a business where they work, that would be awesome.
Good question, Reed. Actually, a couple weeks ago, I was talking to a business there, and the flooring company, I can't remember the exact name of it, that's around on the west side. The employers there actually talked to me about that. I mean, as you know, there's a labor shortage in a lot of businesses right now, and they were looking for people that would install, and they said, we'll get with you when the time comes to open, because we're interested in having folks potentially come and learn that skill of laying carpet and flooring and different things, and so they wanted to know more about it when it get closer to opening. So yeah, that discussion did occur, and there are some that are interested, so that's good. That'll be a good partnership if we can get some of these businesses in the community that are willing to employ folks and teach them skills as well. That's a big part of success on probation and parole. If people are employed, that's a big thing. So, good question.
So I have a question, since this is within walking distance of my house, and I missed the first part, so I'm so sorry. So I'm assuming that even violent criminals, who are getting released, could wind up in here. And should there be somebody, since you said these are people from our area that are going to be coming back here, if there was somebody who was a victim of a violent crime, would this be the best place for them to be brought and let loose, just in case, you know what, they still had a grudge?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. There are folks, again, like we talked about, that have certain no contact orders or no contact with victims that are ordered by the board that we enforce.
Well, you can only enforce it if you know what's going on. That's one of those, you know.
You're right. You are right. So, you know, if we know the violations, obviously that's a big deal for us. If someone's a victim and they're being harassed or have contact with someone they're not supposed to. So,
or they're just worried.
Yeah.
You know?
Sure.
I mean, if I was a victim of a violent crime and then you brought my perpetrator down here within walking distance of my neighborhood, and, you know, and I could absolutely be worried that I would be a victim once again.
Sure.
Yeah. I think it's important, like Herb mentioned too. So these wouldn't be like maybe viewed as additional people that otherwise would not have come back to this area, right? So some of their cases may have originated in the 4th District, or they're going to have that they previously lived there or had family there. We will make effort to have people that have a connection to the area be there. So being in a community correctional center, we're able to have a little more oversight and that ability to monitor that if they were just out at staying at a friend's house. So we have hopefully more supervision of their parole. Is we usually see things happening quicker. It doesn't mean there's no guarantee that of future criminal behavior, but we have more opportunity to watch and monitor while they're in here versus when they just go out to regular, parole on their own.
Can I ask a question now?
You bet.
At first you were talking about 90-10 probation versus the parole. Is the probation 10 and the parole 90, or the other way around?
Yeah, no, the probation's 90% probably, and that's just a rough figure I just was throwing out. It seems like there's quite a few more probationers that we have on probation than parole. So in our district in Region 4, it's somewhere around 90-10, somewhere in that neighborhood. Like they say, we've got around 2,500 offenders in Region 4, which includes 8 different counties, Utah County being the largest. And about as of this morning, the number that I ran was 436 offenders living in Orem. So we work very closely with Orem Police Department. I know Chief Adams very well. I knew Chief Giles very well. We plan on having a very close relationship with Orem Police. We already do, and work together hand in hand when we have folks that are in violation of their probation or parole, and we appreciate that close working relationship that we have with them. But yeah, it's about 90% probation and about 10% parole in Utah County.
Kind of surprised me just to learn about this, about the idea of people being on parole that are put into a facility like this. I just always assumed if you were on parole, you were out in the community living with your family or something else. And is this more of a normality now that part of the condition of their parole is they have to go to this facility for a certain length of time?
It depends on the services that they need. Some of them will need some treatment services. Some of them will need some transitional services as they come back into the community. Some folks are transitioning, trying to find housing. Some folks are trying to find jobs and different services. So it'll depend on the services that are needed, and so that is kind of an indicator as to those that get placement in a center. And so it will vary. Still, the vast majority of them will come into the community and just be, living in our community rather than going to the center. The center can only serve, so many people at a time. And generally speaking, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, from my experience, most folks are there between rather short stays, 30 to 60 days, sometimes longer if they're in the programs, a little bit longer. But it's like if they're transitioning out, trying to find housing, as soon as they find housing, we transfer them, they move into the housing suitable, and then we transfer their case to a regular parole officer in the community that will then supervise their case while they're in the community and continue on with their parole. So
the probation people, this is their sentence basically, is to serve or is to go to this place and have these programs?
Maybe I shouldn't have thrown probation out there. It might have been confusing, but probation generally, this won't have any probationers, most likely, in this facility. It will all be parolees. So probation, even though that's about 90% of what we deal with.
Oh, okay. Because I thought it was 90% of them are going to be there on probation.
No,
and 10% on parole. Okay.
I didn't articulate that very well. So in those on community supervision currently in Region 4, in that 8-county area, probably 90% of the offenders that we supervise are probationers. About 10% of them in that just rough area are parolees. And the ones in this center will be parolees.
Okay, thank you. That
helps
me to understand this better. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
I was wondering
Yes,
what
Mark?
was the nature or the breadth of crime-related felonies they're looking at? Are they sexual assault-related stuff, or is it burglary, or what? What's the range of their crimes?
It'll probably be a wide range. I know, or either one of us could answer. The most parole typically means they've had some opportunities in the community already, right? Maybe they had a serious offense occurred or enough attempts at probation that didn't work, so a judge sent them to prison. So there could be person offenses, property, drug offenses, sex offenses are a potential in that group, but that would very likely be a smaller portion of the treatment and the beds that are available there for sex offenses specifically.
You have some businesses in that area like UPS that operate around the clock at certain times. Do you anticipate any additional increased risk for any of their employees?
Hopefully not. I mean, like Irv said, we want to be a good community partner. We'll keep cameras we plan to have them pointed in multiple directions. I mean, that's just one of the things that we do, and through the accountability monitoring. Also, Irv, I'm not sure if we mentioned we can add GPS monitoring for the initial time that people come to this center. So there'll be some of them, those that maybe we view as a higher risk, we'll place on an ankle bracelet. So they'll have not only a place that they need to check in, but we'll be able to know where they're at in the community. I mean, they can still cut it. They can still decide to run, but it helps to add a few more they know that we're monitoring and that we're watching some of their movement.
And are there specific hours of operation that they all need to be in by a certain time at night, or is it come and go as you please 24 hours a day, or what type of operational?
Go ahead, Herb.
Most of them are operating during the day. It depends on if they're working. I mean, if they had a job, let's just say they were working, I don't know if UPS would hire people from the center or not, but if they were working there and they were working a graveyard, they could work graveyards. We would do accountability calls, and they would have to call into us and verify that's where they were, and we would call and check on them as well at their employment. Generally speaking, though, most of the people will be, during the daytime out of the center at work, some at treatment, some at other services. Some of the treatment will be in the center. Like I say, we'll have some therapists and case managers and others that will be providing treatment to others that will be in classes during the day at the center. So, there'll be some that can come and go if they have work later in the evenings, and even some will have work graveyards at times. Usually what happens, those that are working, if they're able to find work and maintain it for a while, then they're able to transition back into the community through, getting an apartment or getting housing and other services back into the community, and they're not at the center generally too long. So it can be 30, 60, 90 days, and then they're transitioning out of the center back into the community. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it sounds like there's not really everybody's in bed by a certain time frame. It's,
Yeah, I mean,
roles on most program, and you try to monitor that program and try to help them find a good entrance into society.
Yeah, most of the people are going to be at night are going to be back in the center. If they're not, we know where they are, and we're making those accountability calls as to where they are and what's going on. And like I say, occasionally we get people that walk away. It happens, and it's going to happen. So those folks that walk away, as soon as they walk away, we notify the Board of Pardons, obtain a board warrant for them, and then try and find them. So that is something that will happen and is to be expected. It happens at our other centers. So that is something that we obviously keep a close eye on.
Maybe we can add, Irv, I know there's an employment agreement, and Irv and I both worked at our correctional facilities in the Salt Lake County area, so we have some experience working inside these facilities. When they receive a job, we have their employer sign an agreement that basically says, I recognize this person as a resident at this facility, and I will, cooperate. I mean, an employer can still decide to not help us or not give us information, but we ask for the employer to help, let us know if they decide to fire them or if they lose their job. So we try to have a good relationship with the employers so that there's nothing secret about that this person's a resident, a parolee. We want to work with them and know if they don't show up to work. We like it when the employers call us and say, so Johnny didn't show up to work today, because then we can initiate some other action to try to find him or contact family and friends and help bring them back to being accountable.
Brent Sumner had a question. Brent, can you unmute yourself?
Who are you talking to?
Brent.
Oh.
So Karen, while Brent's figuring that out, Karen wrote, I work with some of the same population. Our agency tries to help them find housing. As you know, it's extremely difficult for those who have been incarcerated to find housing, especially in Utah County market with so many students. Which is my experience as well in the housing world.
Yeah, so. You're right. I mean, it's extremely difficult. Housing market right now is a challenge. And a lot of folks, when they're on parole, their families have helped them, and their families sometimes are willing to help them again and help them back, but sometimes their families have said, we've been trying to help you, and sometimes the family are the victims, right? And they've dealt with these folks and been victimized by them, and they're like, good luck on your own. And so that's where some of these folks, when they're ready to change, and we want to be there to help them, But housing is a huge challenge right now in Utah and in Utah County in particular. Like you mentioned, a lot of students, a lot of issues with housing, and so we try and we will check residents before we release them from the facility. We check the residents, and the agents will try and check to where they're going so that we know that they're going to a place that will be a place that hopefully they can be successful. But it is you brought up a good point. Housing right now is a big challenge for everybody, and then an even bigger challenge for a lot of our folks, right? That are convicted felons, and people a lot of times pause when finding out that they're going to be running to a convicted felon. So they're even in a tougher spot. So that's part of the reason this facility is needed, I think, because of the housing component of transitioning people back into the community from the prison. Will give us an opportunity to help them along those paths and to build up some money and to have the down payment when someone's just coming out of prison. A lot of times if the family isn't willing to help or they don't have a support system, then what do? You know, do they go onto the street? And then their odds of success become a lot less. So this facility, I think, will be a good addition with that housing component in mind. So.
And Karen, thank you for the feedback too. We want the therapists and the caseworkers, the agents that will work out of this facility to be aware of what's available in the community, especially those caseworkers. They'll work hand in hand with the therapists, but we want the caseworkers that are based there to be knowledgeable about what's available in the community. To maybe there's some bridge opportunity for housing assistance. So I think there's good opportunities to help.
Yeah, Karen wrote in the chat that their agency has a landlord outreach specialist that may be able to help as well. So does anyone else have any other questions for Irv or Dan tonight?
Well, I just would like to say, and I can see that this is already a done deal, and it doesn't shock me at all that it's right here by my neighborhood, because guess where I live? I live in Geneva Heights neighborhood, the low-income area. So this just tells me that as these people are trying to find housing, a number of convicted felons in our area are going to increase dramatically. But you know what? I get it.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to spread housing out from here.
Not likely.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. I thought I had a hand raised, but
Sorry,
I'd be
Jeff.
curious to know what the success rate is in helping these men transition back into the community. Is there a percentage or the data that shows how this helps benefit them and help them be successful in that transition?
Dan, do you want to talk about that, or would you like me to?
I think we could probably do some follow-up to get some better, actual numbers, maybe looking at our other facilities. I believe that it's majority are successful during this phase. So I know majority is kind of a hard range to be at, because that could be anything above 50%. But, we hear about failures a lot, and that's what we end up having to focus on and work with in the communities across the state. But most people are actually completing and working toward a successful completion to their sentence, to their supervision. So the period of time that we are most likely to see issues is usually that first year after release. I mean, the likelihood of future violations drops the longer they can remain stable in the community. So by having a facility to support, those that might be at risk of being less stable, we're actually kind of propping their chance up for that bit of time, at least for the time that they're in the center. And we, at the Provo office, Irv's team has a treatment resource center that we operate there. So there are services that we also try to bridge internally. So they're not, when they release from the center, it's not just like, good luck, you're on your own. There's a field agent. There's additional therapists and caseworkers that we have available, in addition to what's available in the private community as well. So we can follow up and look more at some of the outcomes of our other centers. But I do believe it's the majority are working through successfully during the center facility phase.
Question, is this information to us tonight sort of your initial foray into the public knowledge about this? Because I haven't read anything about this. And has it been talked about in city council meeting and so forth?
Jamie, maybe you could address that.
What did you say?
I said maybe Jamie or Stephen could address that.
Okay.
Maybe just, Ken, will you repeat, or just repeat the question one more time, make sure we're getting the right one.
My question is this your initial effort to educate the public, what you're doing tonight with us? Or have other efforts been made previously? Because I don't remember hearing about this before. And has this been discussed in like city council?
No, this is Jamie. I'm sorry. I had a bite of my dinner in my mouth, so I apologize. We were made aware of this facility in November October by the Department of Corrections. The department and the state of Utah went through an evaluation process and purchased the facility and then reached out to the city. And we have met internally with representatives of our staff as well as Representative Stratton, who is obviously part of the state legislature and has interest with state government. And we've talked about some of the concerns we have associated with the facility and what we can do to mitigate those concerns prospectively. We have not gone out, for example, and held public meetings regarding the planned facility, because as of now, nothing has really been designed. There is, I don't think at the time we talked last, Dan and Irv, an architect and a contractor hadn't been selected, and the idea as to timeline was still a question. So we haven't had a community conversation about this to this point. At the same time, our intent is not to keep this from the public, but rather when we have information, let's share the information. The council was made aware of this. At the same time, staff was made aware of the proposal and the plan by the Department of Corrections. And I would anticipate, in cooperation with the Department of Corrections, the city would work with them in sharing word, building education, helping people understand what this facility is all about, because we do anticipate that we are going to get questions, individuals with concerns, and wondering, for example, the need for this facility in Orem. And I think Irv and Dan have spoken to that.
Further question then, is this a done deal? Is there a choice for the city, or is it just a matter of trying to educate the public and smooth things over?
Well, this is not a choice for the city. This was a decision that was made by the state of Utah and the Department of Corrections. But I also will represent that the Department of Corrections has been transparent and working with us and letting us know kind of the ins and outs of these facilities. And we anticipate in the future that we're going to work together to educate and to answer questions.
Is it also tied into the Federal Fair Housing Act? Is it also part of that whole scene where you just have to, bite the bullet?
Well, I can't speak specifically to, fair housing laws. Obviously, we have attorneys. I would imagine, in part, yes. At the same time, the state of Utah is not subject to the city's zoning ordinances, or doesn't have to comply in the same way, for example, private property owner does.
Okay.
Yeah, that is my understanding as well, is because it goes through a state process. There are state inspections and licenses, and we have to go through the state process. We did reach out, and I think even perhaps a little bit earlier than the fall, Irv had reached out to the Orem City Police Chief and had a discussion as well. I think that might have been in the summer, Irv. I'm not sure exactly when that.
Yeah, I can't remember. I went to Chief Giles' command meeting with Captain Mallance and some others back. It was probably in the summertime, I think, when I told Chief Giles about it and told him just to be aware that it was going to be coming and there'd be more information coming. So I don't know. Hopefully he shared it with you. But I know that the first meeting probably was October, with the big meeting that we had with our executive staff and everybody. So
we were planning to do an open house, you know, down the road too, and that would typically, when a facility opens for the state, there might, like this, we would have a public open house, and that would be an opportunity for people to maybe tour the facility, see what it, you know, looks like inside, see the services that are provided, and be able to talk about it with members of the community. This is also a process that I know right now it's focused on Orem, it's focused on Utah County. We're talking about the future. We're going to be doing the same thing probably in Washington or Iron County area and possibly other areas of the state, again, kind of based on the legislative intent for us to expand these services into other areas. So it's not just here. It is part of our communities in other areas that we'll be talking with around the state as well.
And I think, you know, this is something that proactively, Anna, Stephen, and I talked about at the end of last year, and we're looking for ways to engage the community. And this was one of the ways we thought was a good start to that conversation, to have a conversation with individuals who represent obviously neighborhoods throughout the community, and we invited Irv and Dan to be a part of this. So this is in part our effort to kick off the conversation about this facility and what we anticipate is going to come more in 2022.
Could you tell me what exactly is the name of this facility?
Yeah, I don't know that it's called the Utah County Community Correctional Center currently. I don't know that it will change the name or if there'll be something else that it could go to. I know that that's what we're calling it right now. So
Okay. Community Correctional Facility.
yeah, Utah County Community Correctional Center.
Okay. Oh, center.
And Karen had a question that she visits with neighbors or others about this, that they're going to probably have some questions and who's the best contact for them. So I'm going to include in this my number they can call if they have questions. If you have constituents or others that have questions, here's my number. I'd send that to you there. They can reach out to me and I think I can answer a lot of their questions.
Okay, Irv, I have a question though. I put your number out there. This is Karen.
Yeah.
What I'm curious about are what are the next steps in informing the community? Because as I go out and in my responsibility for the Timpview and Aspen neighborhood, which is to the north and to the east a little bit, I feel like I would like to inform them because people know I'm the neighborhood, I'm involved in this. But what I don't want to have happen is go on my social media and say, you know what, there's going to be an 82-bed, all-male parolee facility. I can do that, but that's not what I can do that with the best of intentions. But I don't want everybody calling you necessarily. If there's going to be another way where the information, where the public can gather information and get information soon.
Yeah. And Dan, you know, as we work with our folks on our public information officers, I think, you know, as information's come out, I'm quite frankly surprised that there hasn't been, I don't know, some newspaper stories or other things about the center yet. But I don't know the best way of word of mouth. I've talked in a lot of meetings that I've been in about the center coming and trying to educate folks. But as a department, you know, we will look at other options and other ways, and pairing with the city as well, maybe coming up with some other ways of informing folks and keeping people informed. Because I think the important thing is, like you say, when people initially hear it, Karen, they're like, holy cow. But then when they realize that these folks are already in Utah County, they're already in our neighborhoods, they're on parole, they're not in, you know, in a facility, they're being released and coming into our communities, and they're already there, they're already our friends, our, in some cases, children, grandchildren, neighbors, you know, and they're there already. That helps, is if we can educate and help people understand that we're here to help these folks be successful. We're here also to keep the community safe, and we understand people's concerns and want to be responsive to those concerns. So going forward, I'm not sure the exact best way to get the word out from our level, but we'll definitely continue to work on it and come up with ideas and get with the city as well. If you have meetings in your own individual areas, I know that I live in Orem. I live right behind Walker Sanderson Mortuary. I'm right off 800 North myself. So, but if you have folks that are want to have a meeting in your community and you'd like me or Dan or some of us to come and discuss it, we'd be more than happy to come and have a meeting and discuss what's going on. Maybe that's a good way we could look at it, or even at hopefully COVID, knock on wood, eventually will be behind us and we can meet in person again, or have even a virtual town hall if we needed to.
See, that's what I was thinking. Where I by you and Dan, and then just there are a couple of neighborhood groups that I'm in, and just say on this date, I'm invited to come and talk about what's happening, plans for the old BSA building, and just then that way anybody could join in. Would that be something that you'd be amenable to?
Sure.
Well,
What do you think, Dan?
This should be a general kind of an announcement. Like, don't you think that public relations people should be getting the word out to the whole city through an article with a newspaper?
Yeah.
And then have a meeting available for everybody that's interested, so that we don't have just one or two neighborhoods having being upset or organizing, because this affects the whole city.
It does affect the whole city, you're right, and I think that would be a great solution, is to have a citywide or a larger area. I was just thinking because the neighborhoods I represent are very close to where this facility is.
I don't know if
Whatever ideas, I just want to I would like to get the word out in a way that minimizes alarm and get the facts out there, and that questions and relationships can be built, and then questions answered.
this is a ways off, and I don't know if it's even going to happen this year or not, but I know at Orem Summerfest, a lot of times the different city departments will have a booth set up to talk about, don't drop stuff down the sewer drains and stuff like that. If we do have Summerfest, it might be a good place to set up a booth and talk about what's happening at the old Boy Scout building.
That's a good idea, Reed. So what would...
And it seems like the city newsletter, what the city's putting out would be a good start for this sort of thing.
No, I think so too, Margaret. I think we obviously are wanting some details. One of the challenges, of course, is we can't pitch this like this is the option of the citizens, and they get to decide whether or not this is something.
Exactly.
So you're right. You always.
They need to understand that it's a state mandated kind of thing.
Yeah, what public input looks like when there isn't another option isn't really. It looks different than maybe, hey, we're designing a park and here's a few options. What do you like? So I think we're working through some details. This meeting has been helpful to bring this to a group of people who understand what public processes look like, ask these types of questions. This has been really helpful. And I think we can start putting out more information and doing it in a way that manages expectations, but also speaks to some of the frequently asked questions, which is, I think, what we gathered tonight, as you've heard this for kind of the first time for most of you.
And we can probably offer, right, through, we do have a public information, a communications team. There will be some opportunities up ahead that might kind of line up with a good point for us to maybe share something too that's more broad. So this did go through public. We actually you remember if it was October or fall of 2019, we put out a public request for proposal to see if there were people in Utah County that had land that they were willing to work with the state, work with corrections to develop a facility. That was done in a public process, or at least it was put out on a public kind of a request for proposal for land. That didn't yield, results back, so we went to a real estate team and led into the search. But the design firm is AJC. So, sorry, I'll just type that in. That's AJC Architects. They have some great work that they've done in some other facilities. They are contracted as the design team. In the near future, we're finishing up the design. There will be a construction bid that will go out. That's a public process as well. So that may be the time when we're announcing a construction bid that our public information team might want to just generally make an announcement of the facility. Those are some good ideas that we're hearing, right? That there might be some timing where we can in the near future put something out that aligns with a construction proposal.
That would be great.
I kind of think it needs to be out there before you're starting construction.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
I'm thinking that will not make a lot of trust. If you say, by the way, we just wanted to let you know we're starting construction on this. I don't think that's a good lead-in.
Stephen,
we understand, as previously stated. So this isn't going to change.
Right.
The facility's been purchased. I know that's just getting right to the quick of that answer. So this isn't like public input would change the location. We do want to inform, where we'll be very transparent, but it's already here. It's coming, and the remodel will be coming starting in a few months.
So I think what we'll do, Stephen had to run to another meeting, but he said he'll be in touch with Irv and with you guys and start putting together some information. As that information starts going out, I'll work with Stephen and Jamie and make sure I get that out to you as well. I love the idea of having a meeting, Karen, so we can talk about that. But is there any other concerns or questions?
I just think when you give the information, it needs to be said right from the first that this is state mandated and our city is a subsidiary of the state, so we have no choice in the matter, in the decision making, so that they don't all think they can rent a city council meeting and complain.
That's a good point, Margaret.
That's a good idea.
Very good point. Well, thank you, Irv and Dan, for spending your time. You can stay out with us, or you can leave, or go watch the Jazz play or something. So,
Margaret, you sound like you're speaking from experience or something.
We've been in plenty of meetings today, haven't we, Dan?
Yeah.
All probably had, but thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us join you. It's very informational and good for us to hear.
And if I might just reach out to all of you and say thank you. As a citizen of Orem, this is the best community in the world, and I feel strongly about that. And I just want to say thank you to you for your service and helping it be so. Because I know behind the scenes there's a lot of stuff that goes on with you guys and volunteering your time. So I just want to say thank you, and we want to be responsive and be good neighbors as well down the road. So anyway.
Well, thank you very much. Have a good night.
You as well.
Welcome to my neighborhood.
Thank you.
We had a few people join us since the meeting. So we had Mark Seastran, Jana, and Brent, but I think he left again. And then we also had Grant Allen, who's one of our long-range planners. And Grant's going to be more involved with our next meeting. But he just wanted to join us tonight to get a feel for the meeting and that kind of thing. So, but thank you. I don't know, timing-wise, we've been going a little over an hour. I was planning on a little bit, maybe going an hour and a half. Does that sound good? I know Reed needed to go at some point. So maybe what we'll do with time as it is, we will just table the matching grant discussion until next time. and we will just go to general concerns. With the matching grant, just to give you some background, we used to have a matching grant program that the neighborhood chairs were able to access. It was $5,000 to do neighborhood type of things. And we still have a significant amount of money, about $65,000 in that program. And we're trying to figure out how to best use those funds. So I sent you a document of ideas that Stephen and I had come up with, but maybe you guys can look through that document over the next little while and see if you have any ideas, if you like any of those ideas, or if you want us to continue with the matching grant program, or whatever you would like us to do. And we can table that discussion until next time. So I know, so for general neighborhood concerns and discussions, Murray just asked about the water tanks. So maybe, since Jamie's still on, maybe Jamie can help us with that a little bit.
Sure. Sorry, just
couple meetings. That's okay,
We are-
Jamie. There are two meetings tonight, one at 7 and one at 8:30. I plan on attending both of those. But I just wanted to share the information that I got from residents about what they suggested. They had three concerns. One was the city really didn't communicate a lot before acting. They ended up buying a house and making plans and doing things before they let people know. And they really weren't very forthcoming about what the project was, because it isn't just a water tank. It's a water tank and possibly a well and a pump house and maybe even, I don't know if there'll be a transfer station, but there's more than just an underground tank there. They felt, the citizens, at least around here, felt like it was kind of like what's happening with this facility, like it was mandated and there was nothing they can do about it. And when they went to ask what got labeled as, the city criticized the citizens of spreading misinformation, and they had genuine questions. So every time I talk to people, I talk to council members, not Jeff, who's on the line here, but I talk to council members, and the first thing out of their mouths would say, well, there's a lot of misinformation being spread about this. And so the residents of the city felt like they were being criticized for raising concerns, which I think is, in my mind, as big of a problem as the fact that they weren't informed in the first place. And that's tough. And then the third thing they said is that they've been trying to get more information and work with the city, but they found like that the city hasn't been cooperating. They've been asking for documents and things. They said, well, you can go get that from the state. We won't give that to you because our lawyers won't give that to you. They had to hire a lawyer to get information. And as soon as they hired a lawyer, there became this adversarial relationship, which I think is being reinforced on both sides. So anyway, there's a lot of frustration out there, and there is misinformation, but it all stemmed from a lack of information.
Well, Murray, I appreciate your perspective. Obviously, it's not a perspective that's shared with everybody. Information about the tank is available at orem.org/water tank. We have 2 scheduled public meetings this evening with pieces of the neighborhood to talk about this very issue. We have been working on this since 2016 by way of a series of evaluations in cooperation, for example, with the City of Vineyard and Central Utah Water. We have hired our own consultants. We're in the process now of hiring a engineering firm to help us in the development of this project. The suggestion and representation is that we haven't shared details, and that is because we don't have details yet, because the project has yet to be designed. A consultant has yet to be hired by the city to forward this project. I think when we talk about water and water infrastructure, there is a specific location in the city that is necessary for us to locate this facility to meet the needs of the overall city system. And so I know there are suggestions that we can locate the tank elsewhere, and in fact, we can. But with those additional sites come additional potential costs, and we have to weigh those costs against where, for example, the city already owns property, what the ideal location is based on hydrology and engineering recommendations. So the conversation we're having today with, in fact, that's starting in a few minutes with residents is, this is a necessary piece of our water infrastructure that needs to be located in proximity to this area. The primary concern,
And everyone understands, there's no dispute about that.
yeah, and I think the concern,
But Jamie, let me ask you a couple questions. Number one, was a residence purchased for the project without informing the neighbors? And number two, were there water rights that were purchased in anticipation of it? I mean, what they're worried about is the surprises that are being sprung on them. And I know you don't have a design, I know you don't have an engineer yet, but you know, this project's been going since 2016, and residents found out about this in January in 2021, 5 years later. So that's what I heard. That's just the feedback I'm getting.
and that's a good point. That's what you've heard. So I think the representation as to what is reality and what you've heard is part of the challenge and part of the effort we're trying to undertake right now to answer questions, resolve concerns. The city does not have any water rights that are part of this situation or part of this effort. The city has entered into a real estate purchase contract with a property owner that is adjacent to Community Park. The reason that we did that is multiple fold. One of them is best time to buy property is when it's for sale. So when that property became and was up for sale, we had that conversation with the property owner who was looking to essentially flip the property. We entered into an agreement for him to purchase that property. We have a 45-day closing period on the property. We're about 21 days into that 45-day closing period. In addition to that, the reason we purchased the property and its benefit potentially is because it sits directly adjacent to Community Park, which back in the 1970s was encumbered by way of a federal grant that the city received in the amount of about $35,000 by the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is a federal government organization that required us to keep that property in perpetuity and to not have any facility on that site that cannot be used for recreational purposes. We can site the tank on the property because the tank will be buried. And people can continue to use that facility as a park.
Jamie, I'm not sure that this meeting time, I wish you would just say, as a city, we made some mistakes, instead of defending and saying, we're right, we've done everything we need to do.
I'm not saying we haven't made mistakes, Murray, but I also think we need to be fair about the way you're representing the issue.
I'm presenting data that I've heard.
Yeah, you're representing yourself with opinions and ideas that aren't representative of reality either.
Okay, so that's fine. I'm planning on going to the meeting. I would assume that when the city's getting sued by residents, that somehow there's been a breakdown somewhere.
I need to notice some claims. So again, you're representing something that has yet to happen.
Okay, sorry. When residents are hiring lawyers, they're trying to figure out what to do.
I'll trade you one correctional facility for a water tank.
I sent out a message stating the case for the water tank a week ago, saying, here's all the reasons why we need this. And I fully understand the need. I don't have any problem at all. We need the water infrastructure. So the project is not the issue. The process is the issue.
Right. Any other concerns we can address? It sounds like some of you want to get to that meeting. So is there anything else that we can talk about tonight?
Really fast, Kenna?
Yeah.
I bring,
Just remember, community action has rent and utility assistance available. So your neighbors, if you know people who need rent or utility assistance, and depending on the reason, if it's COVID related and if they meet a certain income requirement, it can be for up to 12 months. And so just community action, uc.org, and we have assistance available depending on
Yeah. And then Margaret, do you want to talk about what Fuller?
well, I'll mention that, but I also wanted to bring up the residents' Airbnb problem that I've heard from residents unhappy that we've got some of these places in our neighborhoods and feeling like it's, all of a sudden a hotel's in your neighborhood. So I appreciate the information that Ken has given me, but I thought maybe you could pass that on to the rest.
So Margaret brought the concern. A lot of the rentals in our community are becoming Airbnbs. Overnight. Short-term rentals. At one point, there was a state law that would not allow cities to regulate those. That we talked to our attorney, actually, Steve Earle, the other day. He said that actually the city can regulate, or they could make it so that they they couldn't exist. They've had several discussions about that, and at this point, they haven't done anything towards regulation. Maybe Grant or Jamie can address that a little bit better than I just did.
If I may just speak to this issue of short-term and long-term rentals, there's a bill currently at the legislature, House Bill 82. The legislature is very concerned about, obviously, housing affordability, and one of the tools that they are looking to expand within the state are the use of accessory dwelling units or mother-in-law apartments throughout the state. And what HB 82 does is it essentially requires cities to accommodate accessory dwelling units in their respective cities. In cities that don't have a university, so this wouldn't include UVU, wouldn't include Provo, wouldn't include Orem, wouldn't include Logan, Ogden, Salt Lake City. Cities are going to be required per this bill to have at least 75% of their residential zones available for accessory dwelling units. And those units, the cities will not be able to regulate the size of those units, and cities will only be required to require homeowners to set aside one parking space for that accessory dwelling unit.
Oh my goodness.
This has been, and there are some provisions that allow the city to monitor whether these accessory dwelling units are being used as a short-term rental or an Airbnb. For cities that have universities, the requirement is that they would only be required to permit accessory dwelling units in at least 33% of their residential zones. Now, the city of Orem, the city of Provo already meet that requirement. So we're not necessarily concerned about that piece of the bill. What we are concerned about is our inability to regulate parking above and beyond one parking space per ADU, our ability to limit the size. So for example, you could have a 4,000 square foot house could have 2,500 square feet reserved for an accessory dwelling unit. We also have to be mindful of fire and building code regulations that the legislature is also looking to potentially relax. These are things like a 2-hour firewall between one unit and the next, or a separate ventilation system, a separate furnace, a separate AC system for each unit, things like that, which we find very, very concerning. But I know that's not the path that you started us down, Kenna, but from our perspective as a city, this is equally as important. Yes, there are tools that we can exercise in essentially looking out for Airbnb type facilities, but even greater concern to us right now is the expansion of accessory dwelling units throughout the city.
Well, one concern that was expressed was a house that was very large that turned into this, and there were cars all over the place because, you know, you could have 26 people in the house staying there, and like if you have one parking space, that doesn't sound too good, does it?
No.
Well, we have small houses in our neighborhood that have a bazillion people and a bazillion
Yeah, I
cars in
understand
it.
that. Yeah, I do. But anyway, the people that were complaining, like in my own neighborhood, there's a house that's an Airbnb, and it's got huge lights lighting it up. I mean, it almost looks like a hotel, you know, because they've got it lit up every night, and it's fine to a point, but it does make people feel like they're in a whole different world than they used to be.
These are good concerns. We will definitely follow up with these concerns. And Karen said that Karen said the House passed the bill this morning or this afternoon, Jamie, and it's sitting. The House passed that bill today, and it's sitting in Senate HB 82 now.
Yeah, Jamie, I was listening in, and they approved it. They moved it over to the Senate now. And
yeah,
so,
I understand it was a fourth substitute that they forwarded.
Yeah, fourth substitute. And I recall at least a couple of the Orem state representatives voted against it. So.
And then, Margaret, do you want to talk about Fuller Center really quick?
I think Kenna sent you a little informational piece about Fuller Center for Housing. I just got involved with that. Karen, thanks so much. She recommended me. Anyway, always getting me involved in something new.
If I knew of anything.
Yeah. So anyway, this Fuller Center for Housing in Utah County the Fuller Center was established by the same man that established Habitat for Humanity. And this particular thing is to help homeowners, existing homeowners that need help with their property. For example, if they need something done to enable them to stay in their home, stairs repaired or something to happen. And it focuses on people that are lower income. And the Fuller Center is a volunteer kind of Christian group, but they do two different kinds of projects. They do one that's called the Greater Blessing Project, which is up to $5,000 of investment in somebody's need. And then the people are asked to repay the materials over time if they can, and decide their own level of how much they could afford to pay a month, even like $10. And so it's all done by volunteer workers and so forth. And then the other one is an encouragement project, which they've been doing this last year a lot outside, where there's not such a need for materials as there is for volunteer effort, like cleaning up a yard or painting something and doing that kind of thing. So they've been doing a lot of those, and they don't those aren't even required as an application project. They can just call and request it, and people will go and help them. So the other one does require an application. But what I really wanted to do is just make you aware of this, that it's out there. They want to find recipients to help. They've got money. They've got lots of volunteers. They just need people to help. So we're hoping that Orem can advertise this and help people to know it's available. They've helped a lot of older people, like widows and things that people that need that kind of help. But I liked it because it's not building a whole new house like we do with Habitat or that sort of thing, but it's just fixing up what people have and helping them to be able to live better in the home that they have and stay in it. So
Yes, thank you, Margaret.
if you have anybody in your neighborhood areas that needs that kind of help, please refer them to that, and we'll put the information on Orem's information. But it's a very good program.
Thank you, Margaret. So that brings up a good point, just for informational purposes. So we also do a critical home repair program in the city for low-income homeowners. We have, I think we talked about this last time, but we've created what we call a resident resources page on our website. And so a lot of these resources are listed on the website. So if you ever have neighbors or people in your community that are concerned or need resources, we have Karen's information. It's all on this resident resources page on our website. I think it's just orem.org/resident resources. So if you need any of those resources, they're there. Or our neighborhood page has a link to that as well, just to keep that in mind. Jamie, you had your hand raised? Or is that from before?
I'm sorry, that's from before.
Okay, thank you. Any other concerns that we can address tonight? We've lost many of you already. So, just one other thing. We have created a new neighborhood email. On your agenda, it's not right because that wasn't available. So the new neighborhood email will be oremneighborhoods@orem.org. And so if we get any if I will receive that email and I can forward that on to you if any of them are addressed to you as the neighborhood representative. And that's just a way for residents to communicate with us about neighborhoods. We didn't feel like you wanted your emails out there on your own, so we'll let them come through me. And if they are addressed to you, then I will send those. But that will be oremneighborhoods@orem.org will be the new communication that we have. Next time we meet, probably in the next month or so, we are going to be talking about neighborhood plans. So I'd encourage you to read your neighborhood plans before you come to the next Orem Neighborhood Commission. They can be found on orem.org / is it planning grant or plans? Grant?
Sorry, I was muted.
Okay.
Let me post a link in the chat.
That would be great. Yeah, so orem.org / planning. And all your neighborhood plans are there. And they are basically what your neighborhood districts are. So it should just be that is your plan. Anything else for tonight?
Are you going to be sending out something that I will be able to have that I can see?
You won't be able to see it, but we are recording it. So we will post the minutes from the meeting on the YouTube channel. So I will send that out because Sunday and Angela both wanted to hear that as well. So I'll make sure you get that.
Okay, thanks.
But I appreciate you coming tonight. That was very good. That was very helpful to us with the AP&P. That was a good starting point for us, and we appreciate that. That's kind of why we have you, is to get that information, to be able to bring these different topics to you and have you help us start those conversations. So we appreciate you taking the time tonight. As of always, I'm always available if there's any neighborhood concerns that I can help address. Please send me an email, and I will look into those neighborhood concerns. And whatever else that I can do for you, let me know. I know Jamie and Stephen are also very open to helping as well. So we really appreciate all the time and effort you give to the neighborhoods and to the city. And have a good night.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, bye.
Good night.